Well, here we are once again. Welcome to the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. I am Caleb Jones, and this is Alpha Male 2.0. And this is a podcast on a topic that I get a lot of questions about. Matter of fact, to reiterate from last time, we are now videotaping these podcasts. So the video version of this podcast is going to be on all the usual video platforms I'm on. So YouTube and Facebook and BitChute and Rumble and Odyssey and all the goddamn places I'm forced to be on because everyone hates free speech. But anyway, this is a deep dive into the three types of women. And I have discussed this topic in my books in great detail. I've discussed this somewhat on my blogs. I've written, I think, 2 articles about this. I go into more detail about this in my dating books, the Black Dragon dating books. And basically, the way it works is there are 3 types of women in the world. Every woman on earth falls into one of these 3 categories. And if you understand these 3 categories, and you're able to identify these 3 categories, you will get a lot more done and have a lot less hassle and pain in your dating life, your relationship life, your marital life if you're married, your just pickup life if you're a player dude just out having sex, if you're dating women, if you have a girlfriend, if you want a girlfriend. It doesn't matter what your woman goals are or what your woman scenario is right now. If you understand these 3 types of women, all of this suddenly gets easier. When I started understanding and identifying these 3 types of women, all of a sudden my entire dating life got easier. My entire woman life got 10 times easier once I understood this. And once I understood how to manage or work with or deal with these 3 types of women and where these 3 types of women fit into my life and where they fit into your life. Because different guys will have different opinions about the types of women they want and the types of women they like, and that's fine. So in this podcast, I'm going to describe these 3 types of women and what to do with these 3 types of women, but I'm not going to give you my biased opinion on where these women belong in your life, because you might like a certain type of woman that I don't like, and your buddy might like a certain type of woman that you don't like, and that's fine. Beta males are going to be more attracted to certain types of women than alpha males are, and so on. I'll go through all that. So the 3 types of women are dominants, submissives, and independents. Now, when I say dominant and submissive, since me coming up with these terms, these have been taken over by the BDSM community or something. And so now dom and submissive have a specific meaning in the BDSM world. I am not talking about that definition. So I'm not talking about a dominant or submissive in a sexual role or in a BDSM role. I'm not discussing that at all. That has literally nothing to do with what we're talking about today. I'm talking about personality styles of women. I'm not talking about sex. As a matter of fact, the way women behave sexually and the way men behave sexually is sometimes very different than their type. I'll discuss that maybe a little later if we have enough time for that. So I'm not talking about being a dom or being a submissive sexually. I'm talking about how a woman views life and how she likes to make decisions and how she likes to structure her life and how she likes to date men. That's what I'm talking about, not sex. This is everything else other than sex. So first, let's start with dominance, our best friends, dominance. A dominant is a woman who has a reasonably specific agenda about what her dating life needs to look like, her relationship life, and that agenda is rigid. And she must follow this agenda, and if she doesn't, she gets mad. And that agenda involves bossing a man around, either extremely or to some degree. Now, there are variations. There are women who are extreme dominants, and there are women who are just dominants. So an extreme dominant would be in a relationship with a man where it's a 90-10 relationship. She's 90% in charge, he's 10% in charge. A standard dominant might be 70-30. A low-end dominant might be 60-40. But a dominant needs to be in charge most of the time. She needs to manage the big decisions and many of the small decisions. And when I say need, I'm speaking literally. She needs to do this. She needs to. She can't not do it. if she is ever in a role where she has to be submissive to a man in an area she finds important, she's going to get really upset and really uncomfortable, and she will break up or something horrible will happen. Usually it'll be a big argument or something like that. Dominants, unsurprisingly, prefer beta male men, and they're lucky since the vast majority of men in the modern era today are beta males. So dominants are pretty lucky that way. They have a nice pick of the litter of a beta male bitch where they can get a boyfriend or husband and boss him around for the rest of their lives, and that's what dominants like. Dominants tend to be stressed out. They tend to be quick to anger. On the plus side, they tend to be good in bed. Dominants are usually actually pretty good in terms of sexual stuff. Dominants tend to be fun people to hang out with. See how I'm not taking sides here? I'm not just saying dominants suck and submissives are great. That's not true. I have a lot of close personal friends of women who are dominants. I really like dominance in my business life and in my personal life. In my dating life, no, I will talk about that in a second. But I'm not saying dominants are good or bad. I'm just saying it is a certain type of woman that you need to pay attention to and make decisions around when you encounter one. So dominants are great in terms of friendships. They're great to work with. Matter of fact, my best working relationships that I've ever had with people in my entire work career have been with dominant women. Dominant women. I've had some good dominant friend guy buddies in my business life, but dominant women are great. I work with some dominant women and I love them to death. They're great. They're wonderful. In terms of dating, as an alpha male 2.0, you never want to date a dominant beyond an FB. Now that is not an insult because a dominant will not date you. Matter of fact, if you are a real alpha male, and you go on a first date with a dominant, within 10 minutes or even less time, she will immediately identify you as an alpha and go, okay, not this guy. Oh, no. He's a nice guy. He's funny. I like him. He's a good guy. He's a cool guy. But I am never dating this guy because if we get serious and I tell him to take out the trash, he'll make some kind of joke and just leave. So I can't date this guy. I need a beta pussy who will follow my orders. So dominance will screen you out relatively quickly, although there are exceptions. Sometimes you can have a dominant who likes you, but you do not want to date a dominant if you are an alpha male 2.0 because she will need to be in charge. And alpha male 2.0 is about what? Long-term masculine freedom. Therefore, you cannot date as an MLTR or an OLTR, girlfriend, wife, what have you. You cannot date a dominant. Now, FBs, yes, I have had numerous FBs who were dominant women, and they were fantastic. Matter of fact, dominants, if you can get them, make great FBs. And they're hard to get via first dates because they won't like you on that first date. So through social circle game or referral game, if you meet a dominant and you hook up with her, that's great. Just keep her at an FB. The only time you want to date a dominant is if you are a beta. If you are a submissive guy, if you're a beta male guy, then yes, you will need to be a dominant. And I have many men who are my friends, co-workers, and many men in my family who are beta males. And maybe you have friends like this, or maybe you are a person like this. Every time they date someone, every time they get a girlfriend, it's this strong, dominant woman who runs his life. And because he's a beta, he kind of likes it that way. There are a lot of guys who kind of need a mommy. They need a mom to run their lives, and they need that. And if these men don't have that, they get nervous. So if you're like that, great. You need to convert to alpha male 2.0, in my opinion, but whatever. But in the alpha male 2.0 world, we do not date dominance beyond FBs. Period. End of story. You're going to have a non-stop pile of problems when you do this because you will both be jockeying for dominance in the relationship. You will have non-stop arguments and problems and chaos. Yes, you might have good sex. And I've seen guys run into this. I've seen alpha males date dominance or attempt to. The sex is fucking great. And some of that dynamic is great. But everything else is terrible. Drama, arguments, fighting all the time because, again, you can't both be in charge. I wrote an article many years ago on my blogs called The 50-50 Relationship is a Myth. And that's a whole different topic. We do a whole podcast on that. But the bottom line is there is no such thing as a 50-50 relationship. They do not exist in the human world. Everyone will lie to you and say, oh, yes, me and my husband are 50-50. Wrong. Matter of fact, if a woman says that, she's a dominant and her husband's a beta. So no, you can't both be in charge. That's just not how that works. So that's a dominant. Now, the good news about dominance is they identify themselves very quickly. Of all three types, a dominant will identify herself the most obviously and the most overtly. I can tell within 5 minutes on a first date, sometimes I don't even need 5 minutes, that I'm dealing with a dominant. They will project themselves. These are the women who, when you're texting, will immediately start suggesting suggestions on where she wants to go out on her first date with you. Oh, we should go to dinner. This really good restaurant, this steak place is really good. And then we should go to karaoke. And then she lays out this entire agenda for you. And you're like, oh my God, that's a dominant. She has a specific agenda and she wants you to follow it. Or in some cases, she has the agenda in her mind, but she wants you to say it. She won't verbalize it. She wants you to say it. So if you say, let's go get a drink, she'll go, a drink? Oh, no. Let's go to dinner. Let's have a romantic evening and go to dinner and go see a play. And that's a dominant. Red flag, red alert. If you're an alpha male. If you're a beta male, proceed and enjoy your slavery. But if you're an alpha male, red flag, no, move on. Unfortunately, dominants are a cultural norm in the modern era and in the Western world. My rough estimate, well, it's rough, but it's not scientific, but it's an educated rough estimate, is approximately 60% of women in the Western world are dominants. So that's the majority. So the majority of women out there in the world are dominants. Some are extreme dominants, some are normal dominants, but they're dominants. And that's of all ages, by the way. Don't think, oh, she's 18, she'll do what I want. No, there are lots of 18-year-old dominants. Are you kidding? Haven't you seen these couples where there's an 18-year-old girl and like a 22-year-old boy, and she's like half his height, but she's bossing him the fuck around, and she just, through her body language, you can see how she dominates him. If you want a really fascinating visual representation of a dominant woman and a beta male man, you should go on YouTube and watch those clips of Johnny Depp when he was with Amber Heard and when they would both go out and do interviews together, like on the red carpet and things like that. It's amazing. You really should do this at some point. Just watch a few of these videos. Her body language is strong, confident. She's standing up straight. She's talking right to the camera. She's doing most of the talking. She's kind of managing the conversation. And he's sitting there kind of by her side, and he's looking down, and he's looking down at his feet, and he's shuffling around, and he looks nervous, even though he's 20 years older than her or whatever the fuck. And he looks totally nervous. His body language is compressed and into himself, and she's standing strong and tall and talking like this. My God, no wonder that didn't work. No wonder she kicked his ass. Yes, that's what happens when you're a beta and you date a dominant. So you don't want to be that person. Just be aware that most women are dominants. Be aware of that. Don't be surprised by that. Dominant is now a cultural norm. Now, 70, 80 years ago, a dominant woman was unusual. Today, they are the norm, and they will continue to be the norm as the Western world moves to the social and political left, which is what it's been doing for 40 years now. And it'll keep going regardless of who you vote for, Trump supporters. So just be aware of this and accept this reality about the world. The next category are the submissives. And again, we're not talking about sexually. I'm talking about three types of women. Submissives are essentially the opposite in most cases of a dominant. So if the dominant needs to be in control and make all the decisions, the submissive is the opposite. The submissive does not want to make big decisions. If you ask her where she wants to go out and eat, she suddenly gets nervous and doesn't know what to do. If you ask her about how she manages her money, or if you talk to her about making a big decision in her life, she will immediately get uncomfortable, and she might even start giving you drama because she doesn't want to make any decisions. She wants other people to make decisions for her, so the pressure isn't on her. And that means she is to be more attracted to an alpha male 1.0 or 2.0 to make the big decisions for her. She does not want to be in charge. She wants you to be in charge. And if you put her in charge, she will do it, but she won't like it. She'll be very uncomfortable and you will have problems. Now, does that mean that a submissive will do literally whatever you want? No, and that is a big point of confusion with a lot of guys in the red pill world. What they think is a submissive, she'll just do whatever I want. She'll just give me blowjobs whenever I want. She'll never divorce me because she loves me and I'm the center of her world. She's a submissive little wallflower, so she'll just do whatever the fuck I want. No, submissives are still modern day women. So on the details of her life, she wants to make her own decisions. She does not want to be told what to do. She does not want to be bossed around. That's not what a submissive means. What a submissive means is she manages her own little life, but on the big decisions, she would rather a strong, confident man, or if she can't find one, a strong, confident woman like her mother or a strong female friend make these decisions for her. These are the women who, whenever they have a problem or they need to make a decision, they talk to 14 friends and their mom and their sister, and they get all their input, and then they make a decision. Those are submissives. Now, the positives of submissives are they won't try to run your life. They will have their own things they want to do with their lives, but they won't try to run your life usually because that's not what they're like. They're the opposites of dominance in that respect. Also, if you like this, and I do, submissives are the most feminine. Of the three types of women, submissives are by far the most girly and the most feminine. That's just generally how this works. If you like really girly feminine girls, and I do, submissives are your jam. There are some guys who don't like super girly girls. They find them irritating or annoying. Then that's fine. You can look at maybe the independent, which we'll talk about next. Those are the good things about submissives. The bad things about submissives. Submissives can be very whiny and very clingy, and they can give you a lot of drama. Now, it's low-end drama. It's not intense drama like you'll get from a dominant or an independent. It's more of a low-end drama. And, another thing is that submissives need a lot of time. They need a lot of hand-holding. They need a lot of time spent because they'll get nervous without you, or they'll get nervous if they don't know what's going on, things like that. You'll need to be a lot more involved if you have a serious relationship with a woman who's a submissive, involved in reassuring her and giving her information than you will if you're with a dominant or an independent. I'm not saying dominant's bad, submissive's good. I'm giving you the pros and cons of each because there are negatives, big ones, to submissives, just like there are negatives to dominance. In terms of a societal breakdown, most women are dominants. The smallest percentage of women are independents, which I'll cover in a second. All the rest are submissive. So that is the second largest category, but it is not most women today. Most women today, as I said, are not submissives. Most women today are what? Dominants. So submissives are the exception to the rule, but they're not rare. There are lots of women out there who are submissives. Should you date a submissive as an alpha male 2.0? Yes. Just remember the negatives. You need to be more transparent with a submissive. You need to spend a lot more time with a submissive. You need to be a lot more reassuring with a submissive. And if that turns you off or irritates you, you probably shouldn't date a submissive. You should probably date an independent because you don't need to do that stuff with an independent. But if you like submissives, if you are a more take charge type guy or a more opinionated type guy or an alpha male 1.0-ish type guy, then you'll love a submissive. Matter of fact, alpha male 1.0s love submissives because they can make the alpha male 1.0 can make all the decisions and command her on the big stuff and she'll follow through on it. Now, the problem alpha male 1.0s have is they'll boss around on everything and then she'll get pushed back because they think incorrectly that submissives will do whatever they're told. They fucking won't. Western women don't work that way and they haven't for a long time and they will continue to not. If you want a slave woman who does literally whatever you want, you need to go to the third world and find some 18-year-old or something. Then fine, go ahead and do that if you want. But we're not talking about that here. We're talking about Western women. Dominance, submissives, independence. The last category and the rarest and smallest category are independents. Now, this is interesting because dominant women will say about themselves, I'm independent, right? What do dominant women say? I'm a strong, independent woman. They are incorrect. Dominant women are not independent at all. Dominant women are dependent on bossing a guy around. And if they don't have a guy to boss around or people to boss around, the dominant gets very uncomfortable. Therefore, she is dependent on bossing people around. She's not independent at all. The independent, this type of woman I'm talking about now, is actually the real independent woman. She is independent. She is the closest you can get to an alpha male 2.0. She is not the equivalent of an alpha male 2.0. There is no female equivalent to the alpha male 2.0 because, as I've discussed many times in my books and my blogs, women cannot be long-term happy. That is not the way their brains are designed. They don't want long-term consistent happiness. If you're happy all the time to a woman, that's boring or weird, and they need to go do things to experience emotional highs that are negative as well as positive. So no, there's no such thing as a female version of an alpha male 2.0. But the closest you can get is the woman who is the independent. An independent is basically a dominant who doesn't need to control anybody. So you just take a dominant, take all of her traits, her confidence, her strength, her decision-making process, all those things, and remove that little piece that needs to boss a guy around. That's an independent. So there are pros and cons to an independent. The great thing about independence is they're independent. They don't need to tell you what to do. They don't want to tell you what to do. They don't give a shit what you do. They're wonderful in relationships for alpha male 2.0s because they don't give a fuck what you do. You can fuck other women. You can go to Asia for 2 weeks. They don't care. Like, okay, have fun. And they're off on their own lives. They're more involved in their own lives than they are involved in you. They're wonderful that way. Another advantage is you don't have to kind of reassure them and babysit them and spend a bunch of time with them like you do with a submissive. Independents don't need any of that hand-holding. She's with you when she's with you. When she's not with you, she's off in her own life and she's fine. So they are very, very time management friendly to date, independents. Independents are wonderful. I have dated many independents in my life as MLTRs. They're fantastic. Love them to death. Now, are independents perfect? No, as always. There are pros and cons to all types of women. The disadvantages of independence. Independents come off as a little cold. A lot of men find them less emotional, less cuddly, less feminine, less engaged. And they are, because unlike a dominant or a submissive who will be with you and cuddle with you and snuggle with you, want to be with you a lot, independents don't have that need. And so if you're the kind of guy who needs that kind of that interactivity, that reassurance, an independent will come off as very cold to you. They're not nearly as emotional. Another downside, if this is a downside for you, it may not be, is they're not very feminine. Matter of fact, of the three types of women, dominants, submissives, independents are the most masculine. They tend to have more masculine personalities. They tend, in many cases, to have more masculine looks about them, shorter hair, more boy clothes. They're not gay. They're not lesbians. I'm not talking about that. They're heterosexual. They love guys. They're great in bed. I'm just saying they don't demonstrate as many feminine traits as you would with a submissive and even with a dominant. So yes, there are lots of very feminine dominant women. I should clarify that. Dominant women aren't masculine or aren't necessarily masculine. That's not how it works. There are tons of super girly, feminine, dominant women. And there are more masculine dominant women. What I'm saying is with the independents, most of them tend to be masculine, or at least more masculine. I'm not saying they're ugly. There are lots of gorgeous women who are independents. I'm just saying there's a little more of a masculine vibe to independence because that sense of independence, and I'll do it myself, I don't need to talk to anybody, is more of a masculine trait, isn't it? Generally speaking, right? I mean, it just is. So it stands to reason. Another disadvantage of independence is that they are very busy. These are busy women. They're constantly out doing stuff. And some guys don't like that. I think it's great because I'm a busy guy, but some guys have a problem with this. They're out with their friends, then they're at college, and then they're working, and then they're starting their own business, and then they're hanging out with their family, and then they're traveling. They're very hard to nail down. Scheduling first, second, third, fourth, fifth dates with independence is really tough because she has a very full life. She has all kinds of stuff going on outside of her man life, her dating life, and you're going to be a little segment of that life, but you're not going to be her whole world like you will be with a submissive or a dominant. Because in both cases, if you're in a serious relationship with a dominant or a submissive, you're her world or a big part of her world. You're her decision maker if she's a submissive, or you're her one and only wonderful little slave. When she's an independent, you're neither of those things. She doesn't need your help, she doesn't need your input, and she doesn't need to tell you what to do. Now, that's both good and bad depending on your needs. Now, in terms of percentages of women, my rough but educated guess is that anywhere from 5 to 10% of women are independents. And based on what I am seeing, independence was a growing demographic for a while, but in the last 10 years, I have found that it is actually shrinking. Less women are independents every year, and more women are either dominants or submissives. So the dominance demographic is growing, the submissive demographic is growing, and the independent demographic is dropping. Matter of fact, of all three categories, submissives are the fastest growing demographic in terms of women because of Western collapse, economic collapse, cultural collapse, lots of reasons. A lot more women these days are realizing that they can do things that men want, and men will give them things like give them money or things like that. So the collapsing Western world is creating an environment for more submissive women and more dominant women. It is not creating a conducive environment for more independent women. Back in the 90s and 2000s, you had a growth of independent women, which was kind of cool, but I don't see that happening anymore. And we'll see what the future holds, but that's how I view it now in terms of what I see out in the world now. Should you date an independent as an alpha male 2.0? Yes. They're wonderful. They're fantastic. Matter of fact, in a way, you could say that of all three types, the independent is the most compatible type with the alpha male 2.0. Now, you don't have to date an independent. My wife is a submissive, so you don't have to date an independent, but they are wonderful. Some of the best relationships I've ever had in terms of my last 13, 14 years as an alpha male 2.0 were with independents. They're just wonderful beyond belief. unless you really need that more engaged woman, that more engaged personality who's more connected to you on a daily basis. If that's a real strong need you have, you don't want an independent, you should probably lean to more submissive women. And again, don't date dominance unless you're an FB. But an independent can be any category, FB, MLTR, OLTR, they can be any category you want. By the way, I didn't mention this. Submissives can also be any category, FB, MLTR, OLTR, or wife. Any of those 4 categories for both submissives and independents, as long as you understand the downsides of each category. Again, I'm going to say this for maybe the 3rd time. I don't want you to assume that one category is awesome and the other category sucks. So the other 2 categories are terrible. Dominants are terrible, I would never date, and submissives are perfect and everything's wonderful about them. Or independents are perfect and wonderful and submissives suck because they're babies. That's not how it works. Yes, you have your own preferences and that's fine. But there are pros and cons to each of these categories. The only absolute definite for the Alpha Male 2.0 is you don't want to date a dominant beyond an FB. Other than that, you can kind of do whatever you want based on your preferences and your needs. Every guy wants different things. Every guy wants a different level of connection in the relationship. Every guy has a different level of time management overhead he's willing to accept. You just got to figure these things out. Well, Caleb, why did you marry a submissive if independents are better for Alpha Male 2.0s? Because as I mentioned, and I've mentioned this many times, I like really, really, really girly chicks. I like really, really girly, feminine, hyper feminine women. So my wife, Pink Firefly, is like feminine to the ultra extreme. As a matter of fact, my girlfriend before her was in the same category. Ultra feminine, like ridiculous, extreme feminine. I'm attracted to that. And even though there are downsides to dating super feminine women or being married to a super feminine woman, they take a little more time. I'm cool with it because that's what I like. So this goes back to what I was saying. Find what you like and have sex with what you like. Date the kind of women you like as long as they're not dominants beyond an FB. There's no right or wrong answer to this. I could go on in terms of how to manage submissives, independents, dominants, like on a first and second date environment or in a dating environment rather than a relationship environment. I could talk about that. If this is of interest, let me know. And I can do a future podcast on an extension of this podcast on how those different types of women are managed in a dating or pickup environment rather than a relationship environment. And I can certainly talk about them in a relationship environment. When you live with an independent as a wife or live-in girlfriend, or OLTR, I should say, it's very different than if you live with a submissive, certainly in a non-monogamous OLTR marriage. Managing those things are slightly different. So if you want more detail on those, let me know in the comments. And I can certainly do a follow-up podcast on how to manage these 3 types. But it's important you understand these 3 types of women. When you get this down and when you figure out, oh, she's a submissive, she's an independent, she's a dominant, she's a dominant, she's a dominant, she's a dominant. When you get this down, all of a sudden it makes a lot of things easier. A lot of things easier in your dating life and your relationship life. And also, by the way, this can also help you in interacting with women in your social life and in your work life. So knowing the difference between submissives, dominants, and independents in my work life has helped me a lot in my work life. Working with women helped me a lot, helped me make more money. So this will help you in many different areas of your life if you get these 3 categories down. If you want more information on this, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you very soon. Bye. Have fun.